now, but I've been getting disconnected from the stream. But then when I go right back in, it seems to be working. So it doesn't disconnect the stream. The stream stays there. It just disconnects me from the stream. Really weird. Am I in London? No, I'm not in London. Why are you saying, am I in London? No locals? Really? Let's see. Yep. Really weird. Yep, definitely on locals. Am I in London? No, I'm not in London. Well, I'm watching it. I know what's happening. You guys are watching. Some of you guys are watching the post that I put up earlier today to announce the live stream on locals. That's the one where the emails go out and everything. There's a subsequent one that actually gets posted to locals once I go live. So the one that you're on is the one I posted earlier today, which is no longer active. So in fact, I just deleted that one just now as I was saying that. So you may seem to have gotten bounced off locals. Not a big deal. Just go to the other one. Go back to the main page of locals where all the postings are and all that stuff. And you'll see the new stream. It'll say live stream live in a red block. And then you should be good. Okay, let me know if that worked. Facebook is blocking you from posting my lives. Yeah, that don't surprise me at all. That's why I keep my Facebook group. My Facebook group has about over 1 million people in it, but it's private. So when I go live there, I could go live there and it's private. So it's, it's what it is. A little darker tonight. I don't have this thing on. I'm just not going to do it. So I'm going to keep it off. That's what's going to happen. Boy, do I got a show tonight. It's how many autists are in the room? How many of you guys like doing, let me define that. How many of you guys like doing research, gematria, Q drops, relating it, tying it all together, comms, so to speak? How many of you guys love doing that? I know we got many, many different groups that spiraled off of my groups to do that. And I think that's great. I've said that for a while. I think that's great. But boy, do we got a show for you guys tonight. It's gonna blow your mind. And also tonight, what we have is a kind of a reassurance, so to speak, that Q is not only real, because obviously somebody was posting as Q, right? There had to have been a person that was doing that. Yet that person was never found, even though, the government really, really tried their hardest to figure out who that was. No one ever found who that was. And there's so much mystery, obviously, around Q and that whole thing, 2017 all the way up to last year when Q posted last. So someone must have been posting as Q. So when I say, does Q exist? Of course. It's not like no one was posting, so of course Q exists. But when we say that, what we're actually trying to say is, was it real? A lot of people, a lot of the Q haters and the people that call Q supporters or Q followers Q-tards, which is a very derogatory term. A lot of those people will say, well, nothing Q has ever said or done has happened. Well, first of all, anybody that says that hasn't been following Q, clearly, because there's many things that did happen, an overwhelming amount of things that did happen that should not and could not have happened the way that they did. Otherwise, Q was either some sort of time traveler or had some sort of inside information and some sort of contact very, very close to Donald Trump. So to those people that, say Q is a psyop, of course Q is a psyop. Absolutely. It's definitely a psyop. It's just not a negative psyop in the way that people try to make it seem like, oh, Q's a psyop and you've been psyoped. What the hell does that mean? Does that mean we've been misled? Is that what you're trying to get at when you say, oh, it's a psyop, and you refer to it that way? By saying it's a psyop, it is a psyop. But the way that you're saying it, oh, you've been psyoped, Q's a psyop. When you say that, you're making it seem like, well, you've been tricked into thinking one thing was happening, and while that thing was happening, something totally different was happening, right? That's what they want you to believe when they say psyop. In reality, Q is a psyop. So first of all, psyop starts for psychological operation. It's exactly what Q is. It's a psychological operation. And what was the intended purpose of the psychological operation? That should be the question of importance. Was it a psychological operation that kept us occupied while the bad people, so to speak, the cabal, just destroyed our nation, our country, and our world, so to speak? Not so to speak, but literally. If it was that type of thing, I could tell you right now, and I've said this before, I'm not afraid to say it, I could tell you right now, we're all screwed. If Q was a psyop to distract us, that means that Donald Trump was in on it, and he is also a distraction. Do you believe that? You believe Donald Trump was a distraction? I don't think many of you will say that. If he was a distraction, while the cabal actually brought their talons even deeper into humanity, then we're screwed. I mean, there's nothing else to say. There's no argument. There's if that is the case, and Q is a negative psyop, therefore Donald Trump is part of it, and he's part of the negative psyop. Therefore, he purposely walked away from the White House, led us to believe that there was election fraud, only to lose again in 2024 while this fake administration continues to destroy not only the country, but the world. Do you believe that? Is that what you believe? I don't believe that. I don't believe that at all. I believe Donald Trump and Q, the Q team, we should say, because I want you to remember, Q is not an individual person. Q was individual persons at moments in time. But when you talk about Q, you are not talking about a person. It's not just one person. It is a group that have very, very, how should I say, very, very secure, strategic, and protected login access to the boards through the level of I'm just trying to speak carefully. That's why I'm pausing. The level of sophistication for each of those individuals that have logged into the Q account and made the posts that you're about to see tonight, and many thousands of others, the sophistication between that login process is like nothing the world has ever seen, ever. It is such a sophisticated process that no one would even understand it, really. And that's how Q never actually got caught. No one ever said, oh, well, this guy's Q, or we traced an IP address or a login to here, or we used, even if it's circumstantial evidence to determine who Q was or where they posted from. None of that has ever been done. But yet the mainstream media runs with the narrative that Q is bad, 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 Q is bad. And they just keep going and going and going and going and going. And suddenly Q is responsible for January 6th, and Q is responsible for, every conspiracy theory under the sun and all that stuff. So Q is a psyop, no doubt, but it's not the psyop that the other side wants you to believe. Q is a psyop in the sense of we are being led through a psychological operation to wake up humanity. Wake them up. It is a grassroots dissemination campaign to funnel classified information to the public and then have a group of those members of the public branch it off into other members of the public. That's what dissemination is. It's not discernment. Don't get it confused with that word. Dissemination is when we take a piece of information, pass it off to a person, or in this case, a group, the Anons. The Anons then structure themselves in such a way that they could reach even more people. And then when that structure is complete, those people that they're reaching also become part of the group, and then that outreach continues to occur. It is like an ever-expanding STD. Said that with a straight face. I'm very proud of myself, actually. I may have snickered, but Snickers is a candy bar. Anyway, so we are in a psychological operation. We've been for a very, very long time. Anytime that you consider there is a movie or there is behind the scenes happenings occurring that we are not privy to because the mainstream media won't report it, and we know all that, right? So don't laugh at Snickers. That's not funny. That's not a psyop either. Anyway, what you're about to see tonight is a great time in my life to be part of something like this. And anyone that was on the chans, whether it was either 4chan or 8chan, and experienced the early days of Q and the postings and the constant looking at your phone to see if another post came up, another drop came up, and then communicating with your sphere of influence. It was just a great time. I've met a lot of you online, of course, some in person, but I've met a lot of you since then, since the days of Q, the popular days of Q, where the multiple posts a day were coming through. That obviously hasn't happened since 2020. There have been posts, but there have been a small amount of posts. I have met a lot of you that, boy, we could have used back then. Oof. Really could have used you guys, because some of you are brilliant when it comes to not only decoding, but when someone says something to you in a certain way, right? And they didn't really mean the words that they said, but they wanted you to take those words and use those words to figure out what they actually meant. That alone is a psyop, right? I mean, it's a smaller example of psyop. The one that we're in with Q and with Trump and with the cabal and all this stuff going on, that is a major psyop, the biggest that they come, obviously. A lot of people have said, well, Q is CIA, and the CIA did this to distract. Okay, distract us from what? That leads you back to the point that I mentioned before. If the CIA and Q is some sort of elaborate psychological operation put in place by the CIA, which is nefarious in nature, which meant to distract us from something else going on that was really important, seemingly the world takeover of the cabal, they didn't. Why do that? Answer me. Just no one has ever been able. Everyone's quick to say, oh, Q is a CIA operation and you guys all got hoodwinked. Okay, why? What was the point of it? Hoodwinked from what? The cabal takeover? The cabal already had power, right? So what were we being actually distracted from? Something that was already in place? The cabal has been running the world for decades. All of your past presidents in recent history were controlled by the cabal. So why would the CIA waste any amount of time at all, even if it was a small amount of time? Why would the CIA waste any amount of time on a psychological operation such as Q. Doesn't make any sense, right? It doesn't make any sense because it's not true. And trust me, I'm going somewhere with this. I'm not just rambling about Q. I want you to pick up what I'm putting down, because for all of my autists that are out there and some of my anons that may be watching, and especially those that have recently really got on board with this and formed your own little old groups, and you do the Gematria on things, not only things that I say, but things that Trump says and Junior says and all that stuff. When you start, it's hard to stop. It's an itch that you can't scratch, and you really need to know whether or not that thing that was said is a comm or if it's just something that was said. You know, people try to decode things that I say sometimes that are not comms. It's funny, but it's not funny. I unfortunately can't tell you, well, that's a comm, that's not a comm, because that defeats the point, doesn't it? Plus, the people that I'm attempting to reach through the means that I am communicating, I can't come right out and tell you that I don't actually mean what I say. I mean something different, because then the other side will know that, right? Same thing with Q. Q's not going to come out and a post that Q made, Q's not going to come and make a subsequent post saying, by the way, I didn't mean it that way. You got to figure out what I meant. You know what I mean? You know? That'd be dumb, wouldn't it? Wouldn't it defeat the point of doing the whole thing? Why even say it at all? You know? So I wanted to preface the show tonight with that 20-minute quick catch-up of Q. I understand many of you weren't around. Well, it's not that you weren't around, but you weren't with this movement when Q started back in late 2017. I understand many of you weren't there. Boy, are you going to get a trip down memory lane tonight. And it all centers around one John Podesta. All right, I probably did that a little too long. I recognize that now, and I corrected my mistake by stopping, obviously. So, John Podesta has been a topic that I've been itching to talk about, kind of like that itch that you can't scratch, for a while. And now that we had the announcement of Mr. Rothschild, I'm not even going to call him Mr. Instead, I'm going to call him Dickhead Rothschild. Now that we've had the announcement of Jacob the Rothschild's death, this has unloaded, as I said on Monday night in my last live stream, this has unloaded a new level of reporting. So what you are experiencing starting Monday of this past week, which was February 26th, what you are experiencing is a rebirth. It is a rebirth of the Great Awakening. Not that we needed to be reborn or anything like that, but the manner in which information flows will now forever change, because the last 4 years rather sucked. Didn't it? How many Q drops do we have in the last 4 years? Handful, right? Did any of them ever actually point us to anything good? Not really, right? I mean, somewhat in some ways, but reassurance more than anything. Where is the prominence of the intel, the behind the scenes intel, like there was from 2017 to 2020? Where the hell has that been from 2020 onward? Where are those drops? Where is the stuff where's the intel? You guys scream at me all the time. We want intel, we want intel, we want intel, we want intel. You know, it's been slow. And I told you guys it was going to get slow. Did I not? Did I not say it sometime last year? It's going to be a slowdown. A lot of truthers aren't going to be reporting anything. They're going to start talking about other truthers. They're going to start talking about, negatively, by the way, they're going to start talking about news, the actual mainstream media news. I just belched. That was of poor taste. How do I recover from this? Well, I think I will recover from it. I'm not sure how, but I'll get back to you on that. Oh, wow. I'm having a night. You know what's weird for those of you that don't know me? I know belch is a word. I know most people say burp, but I say belched because it sounds more proper sometimes. Anyway, but for those of you that don't know me, like in person, this is just how I am. Like I'm not. Is he on? I read it. I read some of the comments the other night on Monday night. Is he on drugs? Is he high? Is he stoned? Is he on cocaine? Is he on uppers? Is he drunk? No, this is actually just how I am. This is normal. I don't know. I can tell you, I walk around the house saying stuff like that and doing stuff like that. You know, it's not because there's anything wrong with me. I just like to have fun a lot. You know, if you're not having fun, you might as well be dead. You know what I mean? It's belch to calm. You guys are great. Podesta. All right. Before we get into the good stuff, why don't you all tell me where you're from? Why don't we get into that? I love doing that. It's fun. Let's do it then. Let's have fun and do it. Okay, I'm ready with all my glasses. Here we go. Let's go. Come on, hit me. Outer Lands. No one knows what that means. Not even that guy. He doesn't know what it means either. Tell me where you're from. Toronto, Ontario. Limehouse, Ontario, Canada. Okay, well, there's a lot of Canadians. Gaylord, Michigan. Houston, Belmont. No one say homo's ass because apparently it's Hamasis, but that guy spelled it homo's ass. So it's what he did. I read it for what it said. Okay. Alberta, another Canadian. Syracuse, Connecticut. Southeast Texas, Ludington, Michigan. New Orleans, Azores. No idea what that means. Converse, Indiana. Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. El Paso, Texas. Merritt Island. Gilbert, Arizona. Minnesota. Marywood, Nebraska. Tullahoma, Tennessee. That's a new one. Colorado Mountains. Coca, Florida. Tamarack, Florida. Volin, South Dakota. I don't know if that's how you guys talk or not, but it's near Minnesota. So whatever. Southern Iowa. Kinderhook, New York. Nampa, Idaho. Wow, we got a lot of new flowers or what? Philippines, that's pretty cool. Avon Park, Florida. I don't see these very often. Washington State, Tri-Cities. Hollywood, Florida. Albuquerque. Careful, Heisenberg's from there. He is him. Midlothian, Virginia. Old Forge, Pennsylvania. Woo woo. Ran several businesses out of there. Drive through there a lot. Dealin, Florida. Hastings, England. Across the pond. Hey? No, that's down under. Across the pond, governor. I don't know. Saratoga, New York, Utah. Muncie, Indiana, Z. Michael LePage said Z. That's where he's from. Z. Got it. Poland. Ancestors are from there. Fredonia, Pennsylvania. Ohio, Idaho, Quakertown, PA. Indiana, New York, Maine, Wellsboro, PA. Mullen. Boobies. Guys from Boobies. Anadarko, Oklahoma. Detroit, Michigan. Slim Shady. Wayne, New Jersey. Jefferson, Maryland. Atlanta, Georgia. Gettysburg, PA. Amarillo, Texas. And one more. Give me one that I don't read often. Let's see. I'm scrolling through. Drumheller, Alberta. A lot of Canadians watching. Are we on Canadian time? I'm just kidding. That's not a thing. They're on the same time. Okay. Where do we begin? I mean, we got a hell of a show, and it's going to be a very enlightening show for those of you that are not familiar with Q, that are not familiar with Gematria, and that are not familiar with John Podesta. And I think the intel part of the show, if that's what you're wondering, where could you fast forward to? You should watch the whole show. Why? Because I'm absolutely stunningly handsome, and the more you can see of me, the better you're going to feel. It's like a radiance that I emit through like my body to your eyes. And when it hits your eyes, you are just suddenly much better in all aspects. I should make my own cologne. And, well, that wouldn't be the same, would it? Okay. Anyway, Wow. It's just really a really rough night so far. By the way, if you're watching on Rumble, please hit the thumbs up button. There's a little thumbs up button. It's down there. I want you to hit it with your mouse or your finger until it turns green. And then when it does turn green, you've done your job. Now, as always, trolls, make sure you hit the thumbs down button because I like people to notice the difference, the ratio between thumbs ups and thumbs downs. We usually get about 100 to 200, sometimes a little over 200 thumbs downs, and then like these tens of thousands thumbs up. So when you hear that one overwhelming idiot in the live chat saying, Phil's a grifter, Phil's a pedophile, Phil's everything that you hate, and you should hate him. There's just a couple of those guys. There's not a lot. So cool. So make sure you hit those thumbs down button. I have 3 sponsors for tonight. The first one I want to mention right now before I forget about it, if you don't mind. And that is Field of Greens. Let me read you some cool stuff about Field of Greens before I get into the rest. Field of Greens. So what Field of Greens is, should I go get it? No, I don't want to. What Field of Greens is it's a powder. Okay, it comes in a jar about yay big, and it's a powder. And what you do is you mix it in with water. You can mix it in with a sports drink. You can mix it in whatever you want. I've taken it. I like it. It's gritty, so it's going to have a little bit of almost like when you mix Kool-Aid and you don't mix it quite enough, or iced tea, like powdered iced tea, and you don't mix it all the way. It'll have that like crunchy thing in your teeth sometimes. I actually like it. Why? Because it tastes good too. But what it does for you is remarkable. You have way more energy throughout the day, number one. Your skin is going to look a lot healthier. So if you're doing Field of Green stuff, plus you're doing my X Patches system, you're going to look like $1 million. Case in point, look at me. Look at my skin. Just look at it. Have you ever seen skin like this before? Look at the tattoos I have. That has nothing to do with anything. But on another point, my skin is radiant. I'm glowing all the time. I'm always glowing, right? That was a terrible pitch. So your skin looks healthier. It's going to help with your digestion. Your stomach's going to feel better throughout the day. Your hair and nails are going to grow faster and also look healthier. And just overall, you're going to feel fantastic throughout the day. So Field of Greens, one of our primary sponsors for tonight, sponsor number 1, fieldofgreens.com. If you do try it out, try the berry flavor. Berry flavor is the best one. One of the flavors tastes terrible. They know that. I've told them that. But they still sell it. Why? Because people buy it, I guess. I don't know. But regardless of that, try the berry one. Berry one's great. If you use the promo code at checkout, Phil, P-H-I-L, you will get 15% off your order, which is kind of cool because no one gets that unless you use promo code Phil. So fieldofgreens.com, promo code Phil, 15% off. Let's get into the good stuff. I did that thing again, but that time I did it a little less than I did it last time, so that's good. I want to talk about John Podesta. I've wanted to talk about John Podesta for a long time, and I only ever held one live on John Podesta. Probably about 6 months ago, roughly, if you guys want to go back and watch it. John Podesta is one of the worst people that I've ever walked the face of the earth. I don't know if you guys know that or not. What John Podesta has done equates to the worst crimes that anyone could ever commit. I don't know where it went wrong for John Podesta. If he was... Somebody just said it as I was trying to think of what to say. You're so full of yourself in a good way. I'm not actually full of myself. I'm the furthest thing from full of myself. I know I act that way, but it's an act because I try to be funny and I'm not. But I'm not like full of myself. I really don't care at all. I say those things because I think people are laughing or at least going, oh, you know what I mean? That's fine. That's a good reaction for me. I'm trying to make it smile. If it does the opposite to you, maybe you should lighten up. But anyway, John Podesta, somewhere along the line, became completely overtaken and influenced by some sort of nefarious force, whether that force was Satan himself or some conglomerate of Satan. John Podesta has done so many things to so many people, and the worst of which is children. Now, I'm going to put some stuff on the screen. Not so much to show you the things that John Podesta has done. That's going to be for another live, and that live is going to be very soon. If you want to watch my previous live on John Podesta, I strongly recommend you do so, because John Podesta is coming into the news very soon. Somebody just had pure evil in the chat. No, I wouldn't even. It's so far beyond pure evil that it's not. There's not even a word that could represent what John Podesta is. Not even a word in existence. It would just be he's in his own category of terribleness. So that side of tonight is going to be pushed. I will do a very specific live on John Podesta, as well as Chester Bennington. I don't know if you guys know this or not, and I think a lot of you do, but I think a lot of you probably don't. Chester Bennington is the biological son of John Podesta. Not because he looks like him, and if you do a side-by-side like my photo did in the live tonight, here, I'll put that back up real quick. So you could see in this photo that obviously an older Podesta and a younger Chester Bennington look very much alike, very much. You're talking about the chins, the jawline, the ears, obviously the noses, the hairline, the shape of the head. And you can't tell too much in this picture, but also the body stature, the height, the weight, the way that they speak in terms of their voice and in terms of their mannerisms. The eyes are almost identical. To have all of these similar traits and to not be related, that's kind of a tall bridge, to get over. That's kind of a lot. People can't really get to that point. I mean, these guys are so identical that they share all of these traits and they're not related. That's not a thing. I mean, that's just completely irrational to think that. Okay. Just logically, without knowing anything. But I could tell you with 100% certainty that Chester Bennington is the biological son of John Podesta, and Chester Bennington's real name is not even Chester Bennington. Now, let's talk about Chester Bennington just briefly. And again, I'm going to have a future live on Bennington and Podesta. Tonight is not going to be that. I'm going to draw other correlations tonight that's going to blow your mind. Okay? First of all, let me go back to that background photo one more time. You could see the overlay on John Podesta's face, which is on the right-hand side of the screen. That is the international symbol for boy lover, the pedophilia symbol for boy lover. You could see it looks like superimposed triangles or so. A lot of people say that, where is it? That this symbol is what that symbol is. See that right there? I'm trying to get you as close as possible without mother. There we go. See that symbol? Oh, I'm going to break. That's not the same symbol, right? Look at this, right? Look at that. Look at this. Look at that. I mean, we agree that that's not the same symbol. So the naysayers out there, the idiots that want to distract your mind, obviously that's not it. But getting back to the photo, you could see on the right-hand side of the screen with the image superimposed over Podesta's face, that is what we know of the international boy lover symbol, which is a symbol for pedophilia. Okay? Now, if you look over Chester Bennington's face on the left-hand side, that symbol, although it's very similar, is not the same. And it is also the symbol for Lincoln Park. Chester Bennington, for those of you that don't know, was the lead singer of Linkin Park. What I've done, erase myself. Personally, I think I have a great voice. A lot of people tell me that. A lot of people. And it would be really hard for all of those people to tell me separately that I have such a great voice and I sound just like Chester Bennington if it weren't true. Imagine all those people lying to me all at the same time. You know what I mean? It just wouldn't happen. So apparently, I am a great singer and I do sound a lot like Chester Bennington. Just want to put that out there. Okay. Regardless, Chester Bennington is the biological son of John Podesta. His real name's not Chester Bennington. We'll get into that another time. And also, Chester Bennington is the lead singer of Linkin Park. Linkin Park, coincidentally, this has nothing to do with anything here, but Linkin Park is also one of my favorite bands of all time. Now, Chester Bennington, I don't know if you guys know this, had 7 children. 7 at the time of his death. So when speaking to his other band members and to other people that knew him personally, as well as, were around him in his last days, Chester Bennington, according to others, was an incredible father. His kids thought he was Superman. They were so into his music and his persona, and the relationship with his wife was excellent. And Chester Bennington was a model of what you should be as not only a husband, but also a father. He was deeply into his children. His children were deeply into him. And the reciprocal relationship that they all had was something that, according to what others have said, was something that we could all just hope for. I have a little bit of that. I could relate to that a little bit because I have a very close relationship with my 2 boys. Now, obviously, my 2 girls just came into my life over the last couple of years, so that it's going to take a little while for that to develop. It has developed substantially already. But the relationship that I have with my sons, I could relate to that. When somebody tells me that's how Chester is with his children, and I know what they're talking about. I know it doesn't have to be described to me any more than that. I get it, because that's what, number one, that's what I strive for as a parent. And because of major investments that I've made in the love and the upbringing for my children, I see it reciprocated from them. So I get it. I completely get it. Now, for those of you that don't know, Chester Bennington reportedly killed himself. Literally out of nowhere. No marital issues. No issues with his kids. No rumors of any sort of impropriety with his band. In fact, his band members were more shocked than I've ever seen when it first happened. I think the VMAs or something around Chester Bennington's announcement of suicide, I think it happened right after, and there was actually a tribute to Linkin Park where the band members, you could see it in their face that they were just completely floored. Completely. It completely came out of nowhere, not only for Linkin Park and the remaining members of the band, but also his family and his kids, man. Let me tell you something. Somebody that has that type of relationship with their family, particularly their children, does not kill themselves. Anybody here who has thought about suicide in the past but didn't do it, how hard was it? Incredibly hard. And that's if you have nothing to live for. If you have a really hard financial situation, or you have very hard family problems, or your kids won't speak to you, or you're not speaking to someone in your family that's important to you, or you don't have a lot of friends, or whatever the reasons are that may drive you to a suicidal thought, doing it is a total different ball of wax. you are so afraid of the actual moment called death that anything psychological just it repels. It just repels. And it is incredibly hard. Now, another thing I want to tell you, and we're going to get into this. This is going to be actually one of my first Quantum Films episodes after the one. We'll talk about that, by the way, later tonight. I forgot about that. We're going to do a Quantum Films film on the relationship of Chester Bennington versus John Podesta. But one more thing I want to show you, in case you missed it on this picture. The superimposed image over Chester Bennington's face on the left-hand side is the logo of Lincoln Park. If you don't believe me, Google it. You could see a very, very, very similar contrast to the logo over John Podesta's face on the right, which is the international pedophilia symbol for boy lover. In fact, if you look closer at these images side by side, you will notice that the image on the left, the Lincoln Park logo, almost has a strike going through it from the top to the bottom, the right northeast corner of the top, going down to the left southwest corner at the bottom of the circle. Now, so to speak, that would be a slice across the logo of pedophilia, across the boy lover logo for pedophilia. When you look up, and you could do this, when you look up who designed that logo, you will find no other than Chester Bennington. I could tell you tonight with 100% certainty and absolutely no shroud of doubt in my mind whatsoever, and the only way that somebody could say something with 100% certainty, no matter what it is if they have personal experience to that fact. You can't say that, I'm trying to think of something and I couldn't. But you can't say something is 100% certain if there's any shadow of a doubt at all. So you would have to have some sort of personal experience to say 100%. We agree? Of course, right? I have 100% certainty that Chester Bennington is alive and had a major part in many things that had to do with the takedown of the global elite pedophilia ring. Chester Bennington almost was murdered. Very much like John Kennedy Jr., Chester Bennington faked his own life for the sake of coming back and being able to be with his children and taking out a great evil in this world. Chester Bennington is 100% alive. Everyone on Rumble says I'm frozen. Okay. We any better now? Refresh, you guys. Refresh. The if somebody could still see me on Rumbles, please put refresh refresh your screen in the chat. Just so other members, if they're frozen, it has nothing to do with the live stream because we're connected. It was just a glitch in Rumble. Everyone's saying you're fine. Refresh worked. Good. Yeah, so just refresh your screen. I know obviously you can't hear me to hear me say refresh. So if my other people on Rumble that are still seeing me, please put in the chat refresh and it'll work. If you're on Telegram, if somebody doesn't mind, maybe one of the mods, if the chat is muted, I don't know. Please put in the chat on Telegram to refresh your Rumble feed and it'll come back up. Okay. There we go. All right. So that's how it went down with Podesta and Bennington. And Bennington, Chester Bennington, was very adamant, very hurt, and very, let's just say, pissed that his father was involved in such a great evil. to the point where he vowed, even in some of his songs, if you listen to some of the lyrics of Linkin Park, particularly the ones that Chester Bennington wrote, you will see that he was very much anti-pedophilia. And Chester's alive. Chester is living in, I guess the old phrase would be called witness protection. Chester still has access to his family, and I believe you're going to see Chester pretty soon. So we're going to cover that at another time. For tonight, what I want to do is I want to show you some very interesting connections. My autists out there and my guys that my groups that love Gematria and that love trying to figure something out that's happening behind the scenes. Let me preface the next part of this live by saying this. First and foremost, I am finally getting intel again. Finally. There's a big gap, as you all know, of that kind of reporting. Finally, it's coming back in. And one of the first things that we are to talk about is John Podesta. And before, in a later live, before we get to that later live that kind of ties everything together, what we are going to do is we're going to look at some very interesting things regarding Q. And we're going to tie it all together. And this stuff is going to blow your mind, especially if you're not used to this kind of stuff. So welcome to the Mind of Phil. Welcome to one of my past lives. But when I say lives, it makes it seem like live streams. I'm talking about like my life, one of my past ones. Got it? Okay. Here we go. Let me just go back to the beginning here. Got it. All right, here we go. Okay. Should be able to see me on the screen, correct? Right down here. See me? Didn't go anywhere. Great. Now, in addition to that, you should be able to see a document on the screen, which looks very much like a Q drop. Does it not? Right. Okay. Q drop. Got it. Now, right up top here in the Q drop, I just want you to realize that this is Q drop number 34. We all see that, right? Top left, see the little arrow pointing to it. Which you'll also know is the title of tonight's live. Maybe that's just a coincidence. You'll have to ask the person that actually titled the live. By the way, that was me. So tonight's live is called 34. And the reason that it's called 34 is this particular drop that's on the screen right now is drop number 34. You can see at the very top, this occurred on November 1st, 2017. And it is pretty much about John Podesta. Let's read it. My fellow Americans, over the course of the next several days, you will undoubtedly realize that we are taking back our great country, the land of the free, from the evil tyrants that wish, to do us harm and destroy the last remaining refuge of shining light. On POTUS's order, we have initiated certain fail-safes that shall safeguard the public from the primary fallout, which is slated to occur 11.3 upon the arrest announcement of Mr. Podesta, actionable 11.4. Confirmation to the public of what is occurring will then be revealed and will not be openly accepted. Public riots are being organized in serious numbers in an effort to prevent the arrest and capture of more senior public officials. On POTUS's order, a state of temporary military control will be actioned and special ops carried out. False leaks have been made to retain several within the confines of the United States to prevent extradition and special operator necessity. Rest assured, the safety and well-being of every man, woman, and child in this country is being exhausted in full. However, the atmosphere within the country will unfortunately be divided, as many have fallen for the corporate and evil narrative that has been broadcast. We will be initiating the emergency broadcast system, EMS, during this time in an effort to provide a direct message avoiding the fake news to all citizens. Organizations and or people that wish to do us harm during this time will be met with swift fury. Certain laws have been pre-lifted to provide our great military the necessity and authority to handle and conduct these operations at home and abroad. So, this says very, very, before it got into all that other, the final 2/3 of this drop, this very clearly says that all of that stuff that we just read, right, happens after the arrest, the public announcement arrest of John Podesta. Now, notice, it didn't say the arrest of John Podesta, did it? No. It just said the arrest announcement of Mr. Podesta, right? I think we would all agree that there's a difference between an arrest of someone and an announcement of arrest of someone. Now, one doesn't necessarily mean the other, right? But what it could mean is that the arrest had already occurred, but the announcement is here, right? We talk a lot about that with Nacera, right? We talk about Nacera has been implemented but not announced, right? Okay. That is Q drop 34. Now, let's do a little homework. Let's hop right into this and let's see what we could take from the announcement of John Podesta's arrest. You ready? Because I'm ready. Here we go. First of all, 34. If you were to put those words, 34, if you were to not just take the number by itself, but put the words 30 and 4 into a Gematria calculator, you will get in simple Gematria, which is what Trump has consistently used over the years. And we could get into examples of that, but we don't necessarily have to. If you put the words 34 into a Gematria calculator, you will see the red box indicates that the total for those letters in Gematria, simple Gematria, comes to 160. Okay? So why are we using 34? Because we're talking about John Podesta, and we're talking about the first time John Podesta was mentioned in the Q drops regarding his imminent arrest. So let's take a look at 34. Okay? 34 comes to 160 in Gematria, simple Gematria. All right? Now, just as a cute little coincidence, not necessarily on a lot of the timelines that we're going to go over tonight, but just as a cute little coincidence, Sound of Freedom actually equals 160 as well. Probably just a coincidence, right? Can't actually mean anything in regards to John Podesta, could it? Because we know John Podesta is a scumbag, pedophile, one of the world's worst evils in regards to children. Just so happens that Sound of Freedom in simple Gematria also equals 160. That's pretty coincidental, but it's not coincidental enough for me. So I want to know a little bit more. What else equals 160? Assassination. Assassination. So we got assassination in 34 coming up as 160 in simple Gematria. That is pretty interesting. Okay. All right. Now you got my attention, Phil. What else equals 160? 366. So if you put the words 366 into Gematria, that comes out to 160 as well? Where are you going, Phil? Where are you going with this? All right, well, let's do something that Q has often taught us to do, and let's mirror 366. Just, why not? Okay? Let's mirror 366, and if we do that, it comes out to 663. We all agree that 366 backwards is 663? Anyone want to prove me wrong on that? I'll give you a minute. No? Nobody? Okay, great. So we do agree that 366 equals 160 in simple Gematria. We also agree that 366 mirrored, which is something that Q has told us to do many, many times, comes out to 663. And if we look at Q drop 663, we find a very, very interesting 2-word Q drop. Now, there was some stuff that one of the Anons had put on the Chans, and Q often back in the day, as you can see, this is from February 1st, 2018. Interesting that it was from February, by the way. But nonetheless, often back in the day, Q would reply to someone else's post on 4chan, and he would draw attention to that post because one of the Anons is getting closer on something. Does that remind you guys of anything? Like, does anyone else share posts that someone may be onto something? I don't know. That's neither here nor there. Just saying. But anyway. Woo! Normal me, swear. Anyway, this was one of those things. So the post that Q responded to was actually up top in drop 663. I took it out for purposes of clarity. But what Q did do was he responded to Anon 232480, and he said 2 words: Klaus Eberwein. And of course, all the Anons back in the day were like, Klaus Eberwein. Search. What's it mean? Well, let's take a look at Klaus Eberwein, because it's a name, obviously, right? There he is. There's Klaus. See the name right there down below? Klaus Eberwein, left, former head of Haitian Government Developmental Agency, found dead Tuesday, July 11th, in a Miami area hotel with a gunshot wound to the head. His death has been ruled a suicide. You can see up there that was reported on July 30th, 2019. Pretty interesting, right? July 30th, 2019. Wait a second. July 30th, 2019. 2019? July 30th, 2019? Okay, wait, hold on. Let's scroll back up. February 1st, 2018? So wait a minute. You're telling me that Q mentioned Klaus Eberwein over a year before he was assassinated? Or I'm sorry, wait. He committed suicide, right? So he committed suicide. Oh, but wait a second. Assassination. 160. Okay. So assassination equals 160 in simple gematria, and then 366 equals 160 in simple gematria. And then if we think mirror, which Q said many times in the Q drops, and we go to 663, drop 663, which occurred on February 1st, 2018, and we look at that drop and it says Klaus Eberwein, and then we look at this, which happened in July of 2019, a full year and a half later, we have Klaus Eberwein shooting himself in the head. But we also have assassination in the same gematria that comes up to Q drop 663, which is mirror of 366. Wow, Phil, what the hell? What the hell is going on here? I mean, it's already enough of a coincidence, I think, to look at the fact that this all relates back to drop 34. And as we saw earlier, drop 34 comes out to 160. If you put in 34 in gematria, it comes in the 160 simple gematria. And then if you look up drop 34, it comes to Podesta. The arrest announcement of John Podesta. Do I have your attention yet? Great, because it gets worse or better. So there's Klaus, looking all Klaus-like. You know, you like to wear glasses like I do, and really loved his watches. It's a very expensive watch that he's wearing, and, you know, Haitian government official. So it's cool. It's cool. It's pretty cool, right? Right? This is from Snopes. Did a former Haitian official commit suicide before the Clinton testimony? Wait a minute. The Clinton testimony? What Clinton testimony? Oh, you didn't know? Yeah, Hillary Clinton was set to, actually, Klaus Eberwein was set to testify against the Clintons regarding their involvement with Haiti and what they were doing down there. You know, the whole Clinton organization, The Clinton Global Initiative, I believe it's called. Okay. And of course, Snopes tells us after Klaus Eberwein's suicide, inevitable links, meaning, they were definitely going to come, to the Clinton body count, rumor emerged. Of course, it was a rumor, but without clear merit. So this has nothing to do with Hillary Clinton, right? It can't. But the autists, the Anons were out there saying, well, wait a minute. We know something that you don't know. So these internet rumors, you ever hear of those? Internet rumors came out, and it was kind of linking Klaus Eberwein's death to the Clintons in some way. No one really knew how. We did. Why? Because I'll be a son of a bitch. Hillary Clinton in simple gematria comes out to 160. What is happening in my life? So this all starts with Q drop 34. Okay, John Podesta is mentioned in Q drop 34. We're not done with Podesta, by the way, tonight. I know we talked about him a little bit, but we're not done yet. We're not done. We're gonna get there. But all started with Q drop 34. Put that back on the screen, please. Thank you, Phil. There's Q drop 34. See it? Okay, love it. Great. Now, from 34, we're just going to enter 34 in gematria. Just why not? Okay, simple gematria, 160. Got it. Oh, by the way, Sound of Freedom also comes up in 160. We'll talk about that a little later. Assassination comes up in 160. Interesting. Now, assassination is tied somehow to drop 34, at least in the sense that they are linked through gematria. 366, if you enter those words of those numbers into gematria, also comes up to 160. So let's do a little something creative like we've been taught to do and say, hey, 366, mirror that, 663, Klaus Eberwein, I'll be a son of a bitch. Now, not only so far is Podesta somehow tied to this because it comes out to 160, but also Klaus Eberwein is now tied to drop 34 via gematria. Okay? And wow, look at that. He died. And how did he die? Suicide. But right after that suicide, now keep in mind, Klaus Eberwein was mentioned by Q a year and a half before this suicide. Okay? I just want to put that out there because I don't know if that matters or not. But Anon's hopped on this. Anon's hopped on it, and boom. We think Hillary's somehow involved. Why do we think that? Well, maybe it has something to do with this. Let's dive a little bit deeper. Let's look at 034, which is drop 034. Why don't we just do the same thing? Why don't we mention, think mirror again. Why don't we mirror 034? Why don't we just, look at it a little bit differently? Not only mirror it this way, but let's mirror it this way as well. Let's take it vertically mirrored and horizontally mirrored. And what do we get? 340. Okay, let's look at 340. Why is Q on December 22nd, 2017 telling us about North Korea? Why does 034 and 340 have anything to do with North Korea? How does it relate to a bank and financial leverage? How does that relate to Klaus Eberwein? What is Q trying to tell us about Iran? And what on earth does plateful mean? Are these words and areas that we should be looking at much deeper? I think so. And I understand, by the way, if you mirror it one way, you'll get 430. But if you mirror it both ways, you get 034. And from 034, you get 340. So we could do it both ways. Okay, there's two ways to mirror. You can mirror this way, or you could invert it and mirror it the other way. That's what we did. Okay, I know a lot of you guys aren't used to the whole process that we go through, but I'm bringing up this drop in particular, drop number 430, because it relates. I know I have 340 on the screen. That's obviously a typo. You want me to fix it? Will it make you feel better if I fix it? Okay, there you go. Everybody happy now? Yay! No more complaining. All right. Look at that. We get 430. Now, also interesting, another very related post to post number 430 is post number 340. We're not going to get into that yet. We're going to save it for a little while, and there's a reason we're going to save it. But yay! Everybody's saying yay in the chat. Yay! Look what we did. We fixed it. Everyone's saying thank you. That was confusing. Oh, I feel so good. Isn't that good? It's so good. Okay. 034 mirrored one way is 430, which is the drop that we have on the screen. We'll talk about 340 another time. That's going to drop your consciousness as well. So let's move on. Here's another one that when you look at the results for 160, and there's a reason why I mentioned this drop, by the way. I don't want to browse over it too quickly. I want you to look at this drop and look at it very, very closely. And I also want you to watch words that come out in the next 7 days. 7 days. 7 days. I want you to watch the words that come out of certain people's mouths in the next 7 days as a confirmation. As a confirmation of what you're seeing tonight is not bullshit, and it's not some ill-fated attempt for Phil to have a live stream and blah, 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 blah. Okay? Watch. Watch what these words in this drop mean, and watch where they come from. By the way, anyone run plate full through Gematria? Just wondering. Anyway, let's not talk about that just yet. Let's move on. Let's move on. But keep this drop in mind. Don't forget about this drop. I want you to remember this drop, and I want you to watch the words that come out of people's mouths in the next 7 days. Okay? We'll talk about that later. Let's move on. 366. You enter the words 3, 6, and 6 into Gematria, and you come up at, well, look at that. Another 160. Pretty interesting, huh? 366. What's this? What's this? What's this? Q made it a point to highlight these Anon posts on 4chan. You can see that this drop, 366, was on December 18, 2017. Interesting date, by the way. And you could see that a couple Anons in this particular highlight were referenced by Q to say, hey, you're onto something there. Okay. We're going to look at this one. We're going to look at Tom Hanks. That's a very interesting name in that post. You'll see why in a little while. And then we're also going to look down here, and we're going to look at Splash. Missile time of flight is expiring, or missile destroyed, target or bomb impact. And then we're going to look at Fox 3, two very interesting terms. Simulated / actual launch of active radar-guided missiles. 366. Drop 366. Okay. North Korea, Iran, tech, nuke. WMD. North Korea capability plus Iran. Mentions John Brennan. Nuke development plateful. Iran funded by the U.S. Okay. Why is Iran protected? Bank financial leverage? North Korea clowns with a capital C. Oh, what? Kind of like the clown show? I never heard of that before. Very interesting. Very interesting. How this post, 430 and 034, which keep in mind, 34 in Gematria comes up to 160, right? Simple Gematria. And also 160 in Simple Gematria comes to 366. Drop 366, wrong way. Drop 366 mentions missiles and terminology for missiles. Why did Q choose to highlight these particular posts from other Anons in drop 366? Did it have anything to do with the Gematria on 366? Which also related to drop 34, which also related, if you think mirror, to drop 430, mentioning Iran and North Korea. Also mentioning the words splash. Perhaps big splash? What about the movie Splash? Has that actor Tom Hanks in it? The movie Splash? Anyone ever see the movie Splash? No? Maybe that's a movie you should watch. Okay. All right. By the way, for those of you that just simply do not understand Gematria, Gematria is a biblical way to assign, biblical or ancient way to assign to assign numbers to words. So A is 1, B is 2, C is 3, D is 4, and so on, all the way up to Z. So anytime you have a group of letters making words, you could seemingly take those words and correlate them to a certain number. In this case, we're focused tonight, especially, on drop number 34 and how drop number 34 in John Podesta relates to upcoming ongoings. So that's what we're doing. So those of you that don't know what Gematria is, it's actually quite easy. You just take a word, do the calculation of the numbers. I could do Gematria in my head. I don't know if you guys know that or not. Did you ever see me do those car videos in which I say, by the clock of the morning, yet shall be under the sun, by the time the shelter is risen? You ever see me do that in a car and then I just go off for like 10 minutes doing it and they're like, he's crazy, I do it. No. What I'm actually doing is telling you something completely different, but I'm using Gematria as I'm doing it. So I'm saying certain words that have certain numbers associated with that particular word, but the number that I'm giving you is for another word. And if you go back to some of those videos, you may now actually be able to tie what I was saying in that video to something that happened either that day or the next day or the upcoming week. It was never more than a week. How do I know that? Because I remember. And if you're not decoding the things that I say in that manner and in that profession, well, you better surround yourself with people that are, because you're missing a lot. And if you do Gematria in the way that I do it, and you are able to do it in your head the way that I'm able to do it in my head, it will open a whole world of communication to you that you've never ever recognized before. The beauty of Gematria is, if I say a word that equals 160, for example, like what we're doing tonight, if I say a word that equals 160, there's a lot of words that equal 160. That's why we use it. Wow, plateful equals Godlewski in Gematria. How about that? That's pretty cool, isn't it? Is it not? I wonder who wrote that drop. I'll have to give him a big thumbs up for putting my name in there somehow. Great job. Although, then again, it's probably just a coincidence. Just like, the unlocked boxes thing. Oh, this one says, you are not God. Okay, great. Yeah, because I said I was God. What the fuck? Anyway, so yeah, I would go take a look back at some of those videos that I did, and then that might actually blow your mind into pieces, and you'll never be able to recover. So maybe you shouldn't. It shouldn't be frustrating, guys. It shouldn't be frustrating. It should be fun. We're approaching the finish line. And, oh, by the way, finish line and green light are actually 105 in Gematria. I don't know if you guys knew that or not. What else is 105? Doesn't matter. Anyway, let's move on here. So we got splash. We got talk about North Korea, Iran, financial, banking, the U.S. funding this. We know that Obama sent, what, few trillion dollars in a plane on, what are those called? Pallets, wooden pallets and cash. Obama sent that over to Iran. Remember that? That was, I remember it. I mean, of course, everybody remembers it. But, by the way, if we go down and we look a little bit further here, look at that. Barack Obama. 160. Can you imagine that? 160, Barack Obama financed Iran, sent $3 trillion there on pallets. Wow. But, how much of a coincidence is it that Barack Hussein Obama also equals 160? And then, of course, the tie-ins to 160 reference financing, especially if you look at, again, let's go back. So we got Barack Hussein Obama on the screen right now. Forget about Vladimir Putin. We'll get to him in a minute. Barack Hussein Obama on the screen right now, right? And that equals, in simple Gematria, 160. If you assign the number 2 to the B in Brock's name, and you assign the number 1 to the A, and then so forth with the R and the A and the K and all that stuff. If you do all of that Gematria, it comes out to 160 in simple Gematria. We're all on the same page there, right? Okay. If we go back and we look at 366, which also equals 160, and then we look at drop 366, and it talks about simulated or actual launches of active radar guided missiles, right? And then if we go back up a little bit further and we take 034, now remember 034 in Gematria, the number 34, also equals 160. See that there? And then if we take 034 and we mirror 034, that comes to 430, right? And if we look at drop 430, this drop is very specifically talking about Iran, North Korea, missiles, as well as in this line, where is it? Right here, bank financial leverage. And then it talks about why is Iran funded by the US? So 430 mirrored is 034, 34 and Gematria equals 160. But yet, if we look at 160 in Gematria, the guy that actually sent trillions of dollars over to Iran, which was mentioned in drop 430, also equals 160. What the heck is going on there? Yeah, I know Barack's name is spelled with a C. Why is there missing C? Does that have any significance in anything? Let's save that one for later. I also know that Hillary's name oftentimes spelled with 2 L's. So we got a missing C and a missing L. Or a missing L and a missing C if you want to do it the other way. I wonder what. Is that interesting? Is that interesting? Is anyone else interested in that? Because I am. Why are there missing letters just by 1? Okay, let's push that over there on the side just for a little while because we're going to talk about it again. But let's go back. So we were talking about 366, of course, being 160 in simple Gematria. And then we're also talking about Q drop 366. And we're talking about Splash. And we're talking about a code name, Splash, for a particular title that means something else. Okay. And in this particular case, we're talking about the missile time of flight has expired or the missile has been destroyed. Okay, let's move on. 314. That's another number. 314, right? 314 comes to 160. How about that? You got all these things. 314 comes to 160 in simple Gematria. So, if we look at Q drop 314 from December 9, 2017, be the artist we know you are. It's about to break. Okay. That's probably just a coincidence. I'm sure there's nothing else to that at all. Yeah, actually, just forget about that. No one wants to talk about it. Whoa, look at that. Rolling Stone. How about that? Rolling Stone. Does that mean like a round stone that like rolls? Is that what it is? I don't know. I mean, it could. I guess it could. Right? Just like a rolling stone. You push it and it rolls. And you're like, look at the rolling stone. I don't think that's what it means, though. You know what I mean? Oh, there's a band called the Rolling Stones. It's not the same, though, right? Rolling Stone. So it can't be a rock that rolls. Could it? Rock and roll? That'd be interesting, though. Wouldn't it? Rock and roll? Well, if it's not a rock that rolls, Rolling Stone, that would be pretty interesting because the Rolling Stones were a rock band. How about that? Rolling Stone, rock that rolls. Okay. I don't know if we're onto anything there. Maybe we are. But regardless of any of that, Rolling Stone in simple Gematria equals 160. Wow. Another thing that equals 160, and there's many. There were like 12 pages, I think, of simple Gematria results that equal 160. But this one in particular, Rolling Stone equals 160. So, I kind of looked into a little bit more and, okay. John Podesta. Have we talked about him yet tonight? Oh, we did. Oh, that's right. Yeah, Chester Bennington and 034, and 034 was about Podesta. And now we got Rolling Stone, which is not a rock that rolls, although that is a type of music which the Rolling Stones produced. I don't know. Whoever does this stuff is really good. Anyway, John Podesta is ready to talk about Pizzagate. Really? You ready to talk about Pizzagate? Are you sure? What? You want to talk about Pizzagate? I don't think you do, though. But if you're going to talk about it with anyone, it might as well be Rolling Stone magazine, right? Because they really, really hate humanity. So the former Clinton campaign chairman is among the victims still recovering from a vile conspiracy theory that ended in gunfire. Oh, gunfire? Ended in gunfire? Really? That's such a shame. What about kids being raped and tortured and trafficked and sold, taken away from their parents, never to be seen again? How about, does anyone know the number of kids that actually go missing every single month in the United States? Well, maybe not anymore, but that did. Yeah, numbers about anywhere between 50,000 and 70,000 in the United States alone. That's how many kids went missing every month. Every month, that many children went missing, never to be found again. But, pardon me, I don't want to take anything away from the vile conspiracy theory that ended in gunfire. I'd much rather talk about that, Rolling Stone, than I would about John Podesta raping, torturing, and killing children for a living. Let's not talk about that. Let's not talk about that. Let's talk about, this vile conspiracy theory, because that is dangerous. Those conspiracy theories, boy, aren't they dangerous? Wow. And then, of course, we got this. And then, that kind of shows me that maybe Bennington was onto something about Pizzagate. The timing of his reported suicide is, quite interesting, is it not? Now, by the way, my feed is drastically getting attacked right now. I could see all the little flags going off here, and all the software I got open shows me what's happening with the feed, and they're failing, and in some cases they're getting me froze up, which cures itself, but they're not disconnecting me at all. They really don't want me talking about this stuff, do they? Nope. That just goes to show you that people who are on the other side, they know that I have authorization to talk about this stuff, and they don't like it. And they don't want it talked about. They want this to be hidden forever. And I got news for you. That's not going to happen. If you think that the fall of the cabal means simply that the cabal is no longer going to be in power and we're going to usher in a new regime that helps humanity, gets us out of debt, stops preying on us like we are slaves. Essentially, that's what we are, right? Slavery ended, blah, blah, blah. No, slavery never ended. It was just rebranded. You're a slave. You've been a slave your whole life. There's nothing you can do about it. There has to be a group that does something about it for you. And people like me sit here in front of a microphone and take all of the abuse that I take. You know what's funny? I'm just going to allude to it very quickly. I know you guys don't want me to talk about it, but the deeper I get into these defamation cases against the Scranton Times, against Brie Bourgel, against the upcoming one with Nick Alvear, the deeper I get into them, the closer I'm looking at my 2008, 2009 case. And honestly, I was not only falsely accused back then, I was friggin' set up. I was framed, and I was supposed to be taken down, and I wasn't taken down. Those charges could have put me in jail for 25 years or more. So that means I would have only served maybe 10 or 15 years so far to this day. And honestly, I didn't know how deep the attempt to get me was until I started getting into this defamation stuff. Now I know. Because we've uncovered stuff that is, here, let me just give you an example. We've uncovered exculpatory evidence that was being hidden from my legal team. Exculpatory meaning it would have completely got me off. And the other side, the prosecution side, had this evidence before my arrest. So it was, the whole thing was an improper arrest from the beginning. And when you look at how that exculpatory evidence got covered up, I don't even know what to say. It's real life manipulation of someone's well-being. I can't wait for it to come out at trial. I mean, I'm so excited. It's not even funny. I'm like a little kid in a candy store. These guys run around saying these defamatory things, and they have absolutely